Plants, the green frontier. These are the discussions of the podcast Horticult. Its continuing mission to talk about strange new cultivars, to seek out new flowers and plant them, to boldly garden like no one has before. Hey, this is Blaine from the Horticulture. What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? On this episode of the podcast, we go over yard and garden weed control. Woohoo! Weed control! We actually pull up a diagram from the USU Extension website, USU's Utah State University, and they have a great graph to show the kinds of herbicides that you can use for different weeds and what their brand name is. So glyphosate is the active ingredient, and it goes over, it says what products have glyphosate in it that you could find on the shelf. So the part that you have to do is you have to find out what weed you're trying to control. On this graph, it just says weed versus how good it was with that herbicide that it says. Select herbicide, monocots and dicots, broadleaf, and grasses. Let's get it on. I'm B-Flame.
And I am B-Rad.
And we are the Horticult. Thanks for coming along for the ride. On this episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about weeds and stuff.
Weeds.
Yard and garden weed control.
All right.
We are in the fall. Oh, did you want to do your...
Octubre.
Did you want to do your follow-up for the garden fells?
Yeah, let me just do a quick follow-up on, at one point, I had just mentioned how badly I was failing at my weeds in the turf grass, right, in the lawn. Really, it was coming to the end of the summer, and so they had proliferated, and I had put down pre-emergent several times. I mean, I really felt like that was part of the problem. So I decided to give it a shot and go ahead and get some 2,4-D. There was a cool day, and I thought, this is perfect. 2,4-D, it can go down. It's going to stay on the leaf longer of the weeds that I want to impact. Can't give you an exact brand name, but I just know it's 2,4-D. Sure enough, now the one thing about applying that chemical versus one like Roundup or just like a total vegetation killer is that I didn't see the results right away. People really want to see that dead the next day. It took about 2 weeks before I could really see a change. And what's recommended, and this is what I did, I sprayed that chemical on. I made sure that it wasn't going to rain or that my sprinkler system wasn't on for a couple of days, so that chemical could really absorb into the leaves of the weeds. Also, I planned not to mow as long as possible. So I really let the grass grow and the weeds and whatever grow. It was at least a week before I mowed again. Also not to compost the cuttings or the clippings from that session, because the 2,4-D gets locked up into the plant. And it can, if you use that as compost, it can affect wherever you put that compost. So 2 weeks, I started to see some results. Then started watering again, started mowing again, and it has been close to 6 weeks since then. I'd say 5-6 weeks, gone. Like we're talking all of the broadleaf weeds in my yard, gone. So it was kind of cool in the way that with the pre-emergent herbicide, which is a granular, was sprinkled out. And then coupled on top of that was the action of spraying the 2,4-D coming into the end of fall and into winter-ish weather. 0 weeds, so no new ones have sprouted. Old ones are dead. I can cut my grass to about an inch and a half tall, and it looks perfect. Something that I struggled with for the longest time, not getting the results that I wanted to with weeds and turf grass, has now been a complete success. And I just wanted to relay that experience with everybody out there.
So it went wrong because you were trying to go...
I was trying to tackle it from the seed level only, right? Pre-emergent herbicide was registered and labeled for all of your typical seeds, perennial weed seed, dandelions, and oxalis, and spurge, and all these other guys. It really, once you have them in the lawn, once they've grown a bit, you have to take a different mode of action to then tackle it. I've never had great results with 2,4-D in the past, so this time was pretty phenomenal. Good coverage. It was just one of those simple little deals that you screw on at the end of your hose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally works.
So cool. And I only used half the bottle, so next year
You could hit it
I'm
again.
totally set. Yeah, as long as the efficacy of that chemical stays good.
Right. It's going to...
It might drop a little bit.
Yeah, it might drop a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So cool. So yeah, if people are struggling with weeds in their lawn, it doesn't take a lot of effort and energy, and it doesn't take a lot of money. My thing was, I'm like, dude, I just don't want to spend extra money on something like that, just as a visual. But it was really not that expensive. It was quite cheap.
So your plan is hit a pre-emergent in the spring, and then you 2,4-D in the fall.
Yeah, so the 2,4-D works best under cool weather circumstances. And there's kind of a window. This is what I would do. This is what I will do. Pre-emergent in the spring, 2,4-D application in the spring. Cool weather, cool days. And then also do that exact same thing in the early fall. I'm pretty sure with that regimen, it will be weed-free completely. And a weed is all subjective. Some people love their dandelions, and they're beautiful.
That's
they
true.
really are, and they're edible. And, you can freaking eat the pollen and do all kinds of stuff with it. For the little teeny tiny space that I have, I think it was more of a challenge to see if I could overcome the terrible infestation of... And it's that weed that I can never remember the name that you're like, oh, is it this? I'm like, yeah, that's it. It's
Spurge.
Yeah, it's the spurge, yeah. The 2-spotted spurge. Wait, what?
That's just spotted.
Oh, got it.
Spotted spurge.
Anyway, where that weed literally is grown with seeds already impregnated on the frickin' stem. Like, it's nuts. You go to kill it, and it's like... Okay, so real quick. If I were to have done the 2,4-D alone, that spurge would have shriveled up, right? It would have dropped the seeds from all underneath all of its leaves and stems. It would have dropped all of its seed, still active because it has that seed coat. It's protected. The 2,4-D didn't get into that. And that is why it's so crucial to have that backup herbicide, that granular pre-emergent. So important. The perennial weeds are germinating right now.
Yeah. So they have their window of opportune time. It's not like it's a crop with the spring no, they're growing all the freaking time as long as it's in that window. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. Those puppies are pushing out as much as they can. Is there a time where it gets too cold to use 2,4-D?
Yeah, I believe it's under 40 degrees.
Oh, really? It can go that.
Yeah, I believe
cold.
It's under 40. So here's the deal.
Still is good.
Yeah, still good. Here's the deal. You want to kind of get the sweet spot as far as temperature, because if it's a little bit over 80,
it'll
volatilize. If it's a little under 40,
it won't work.
Yeah, just simply, the chemical just can't enter the plant the way it needs to through the stomatas, because everything's going dormant-ish and it's like closed up. Time of day is a really important part as well. And I say that because it could be nice and cool in the morning, and then the temps could jack up if it's a sunny day.
So once it's on the plant and dry, can it still volatilize from a solid form to a gas form?
I believe it's possible, yes. Now, that's just my limited knowledge on it.
I couldn't find it anywhere.
You really want that chemical to stay on the leaf as long as possible until it's dry, right? And then even longer than that, within that window of cool temperatures, no rain.
Right. So that's another thing that's actually all over the label. It says what temperature to do it, the temperature range. Mm-hmm. It depends on the product. Like, you might have a different product than what I've used, but I think mine said 85. Okay, you don't want to use it higher than 85 degrees because of the volatilization. Mm-hmm. And then raining. So you don't want to applicate 24 hours before raining, because then it'll get into the water system. So that's a whole other issue. I think that's the bigger issue with 2,4-D. Is that, especially in a commercial, you could spray it and the water could turn on as soon as we pull away, and just have it everywhere.
Rinse it right off.
Yep,
Yeah.
Rinse it right off, right down into the drain, down into the water supply, out into the lake or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and another tip, that's a very good point. Another tip, something that I've experienced is, it'd be a good idea when you do spray, to keep an eye on pets, animals, kids, to stay off of that area, even after it has dried. Be careful, just be aware of that.
Law is dry. So if it is dry, then you can be there, but you shouldn't be out on it. But the law is if it's dry.
Yeah, and you never know. Maybe you apply when it's the most opportune. So maybe they applied it in the evening, night time when there's nobody.
It stayed moist.
Yeah,
in the air and
the dew.
Yeah,
the dewage. Yeah, so that's a great combination. I highly recommend it. Timing's crucial, and it'll give you great results for sure.
Yeah, because I have been fighting weeds because I was trying to applicate 2,4-D on my lawn and my mother-in-law's lawn, which it worked during the summer, just like finding the right week.
The right day, yeah.
Yeah. And it was just a pain in the butt. I know it didn't get them all. When I applied, I don't even know if I did pre-emergent this year because I think I know what I wanted and I got what I wanted, but I don't think it had the pre-emergent in it.
Okay.
So the fall, we've been talking about doing weeds in our lawn. So the fall, right now, is the best time to control tough perennial weeds, such as the field bindweed, or as we like to call in the lay term,
Morning glory.
Morning glory.
Yeah.
And we have a awesome resource from the Utah State University Cooperative Extension. I don't think it's called that anymore, but whatever. Extension.usu.edu. Landscape and garden weed control.
Great.
Dun, dun, dun. Field bindweed is a son of a bee. Why is it so hard to control?
It is nuts, dude. It's it's crazy because, first of all, it's a perennial weed. It's going to proliferate from year to year. It propagates itself via seed and cutting, or we'll just say cutting. A lot of the time when people go out and pull the bindweed, I do the same thing. I pull it from the ground level, and there's usually a little bundle of stems. And I just yank on that thing, and I try to get as much root as possible. It then will propagate itself and re-sprout from that same location. But if any little chunk of that plant falls onto if you don't grab that and throw it away, it will root in right there on the cellular level. Like it's friggin' nuts. It's a tough one.
Its roots are super, super deep. You can never pull out all the roots. I think they said it goes down to like 10, 15.
Like down or like lateral?
Can be like all over.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
One plant can be just crazy extensive root system.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that makes it crazy to deal with is the longevity of its seeds. 40 years.
Oh, I would say that sounds
minimal.
Right.
The seeds can germinate a long time. So it waits. It just sits there in the soil waiting for it to become the perfect germinate, and it just explodes.
It has its seeds, sticks around in that little hard seed shell for 40 years until the prime opportunity. But then, it also is rhizomatous, so those roots will just kind of
pop up new ones.
Yep.
So we have a list on this resource that we are pulling. It gives you the active ingredient, and it gives you the respective brand names. What brands you can find this chemical in. One that I use is Weed and Feed.
Okay.
So that is the 2,4-D. So that's one that you use on your lawn. Won't kill your lawn, but will kill the dandelions and the bindweed and the spurge and stuff in it.
Okay.
So this is helpful, but you have to be able to identify, one, the active ingredient in an herbicide, and then two, you need to figure out what you're spraying. You need to know, you have to be able to identify the weeds.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, that could be tricky because some of them are monocots, some are dicots, or some are broadleaf, and some are bladed, like grass type.
So here it gives us just a little selection of lawn weeds, and it breaks it up. There's a table. It breaks it up into the broadleafs, and the grass weeds. So that would be the monocots and the dicots. Mm-hmm. And it gives it a grade. So each of the herbicides, so they have 15 herbicides, and it's indicated by the 1 through 15 at the top of the graph. And then on the in the graph, it has no control, P is partial control, F is fair control, good control, and excellent of that weed for that herbicide, which is really kind of cool. I wish it kind of said what time of year.
That would be nice too.
As
far as like when it's the most effective. Yeah, totally.
Or temperature range, or
that means you just have to do a little bit more digging on your own. But that's a great quick glance. What works really, really well.
So, are you familiar with all these herbicides? These active ingredients?
I've seen them at one point or another in all of my 20 years of doing this stuff.
So it's pretty cool because there is like crabgrass control, which I wasn't aware of that you could use in your lawn, and it's pretty cool. Yeah. So say your favorite spurge.
Yeah, let's take a look at that.
So you have on this graph, it says 1 doesn't work, 2 is a pass.
Partial.
Oh, partial or poor control.
Okay.
That's not good. So it's 10 to 60% control.
Okay.
And then we have F for fair or temporary control. That's 60 to 80%. And then we have G, which is good control, 80 to 95%. But there is no E for excellent.
Yeah.
So it's 95 to 100%. So let's see. Let's go look at the good one.
Tricky bugger.
So for your spurge, number 15.
There's one brand name for it.
Confront.
Triclopper.
Triclopper?
Yeah.
Plus tricloperide. Lid. So that's the active ingredient that we can't pronounce.
Cloprolid.
So what's 10 and 11?
Yeah, this.
Oh, it's 2,4-Ds. 10 and 11 is 2,4-D.
Okay, got it.
Weed out, lawn weed killer, spurge and oxalis killer, weed be gone. That's the one that I would use.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. And that's the formulation of 3 different mode of actions, 2,4-D, MCPP, and dicamba.
Well, you know what? You're exactly right. You do have to identify the weed. You really have to. You have to know what you've got.
Because here, if you can't tell the difference between clover and dandelion, well, it goes from a pass to a good using a different herbicide, or a good to an excellent.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to identify those kind of weeds, and they're not hard. Like I can picture these weeds very easily. Black medic is hard to tell between clover, but that's not hard. Oxalis, okay, I got it. It's the one that like shoots out. Like you touch the weed and it goes pew, and like has little seeds.
Yep.
So that oxalis, clover, and black medic, those ones are all 3 that are kind of hard to tell because they're all kind of a clovery looking.
Yeah.
But how you tell is
lobed.
The way that they're shaped and their flower.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of fall and morning glory and field bindweed, what is the reasoning behind trying to kill your bindweed out in the fall versus any other time of the year?
In the fall, it's reserving, so it's sucking nutrients down into its core,
into its root zone, right?
Yeah,
to protect itself.
So it's pulling it down so it can have the energy to push out new growth in the spring. So it's actually not flowering. Like I have some. And it hasn't flowered because it's not pushing out the energy to make seeds.
Okay.
So it's not trying to spread seeds right now. It's just sunning itself, soaking in nutrients and pulling stuff from the ground. So if you sprayed it now, it would be able to absorb it and go down into the deep, dark depths of its inner root system.
Its inner sanctum. It doesn't know that that's a chemical that'll kill it, but as it draws down into and translocates down into the root system and is stored there, over time, that chemical is still active enough to where it kills the root. So it kills the top and it kills the root, the crown, and everything else in between. That's the time to spray the field bindweed. At any other time of the year, it's simply and merely just a way to suppress, right?
Yeah.
it might kill the top, and then it'll throw out another runner. So, and kind of like one of our guests, Cynthia B, had mentioned about bindweed, filled bindweed in particular, is to persist, pull it, and be persistent and consistent.
Yeah.
And so, and that really is in your best mode of action and defense throughout the spring and summer. If you spray it those times a year, it won't kill it. It will just simply suppress it, and then it'll just come right back. So be persistent in your pulling of weeds, and I know that's not like everybody's favorite thing to do.
I'm reading the graph a little bit better. This is for selective herbicides. Mm-hmm. So non-selective herbicides are not on the graph. That's why Roundup is not on the graph, because it kills everything. Mm-hmm. So some of these weeds do not have a selective herbicide. Will not work on them. And they're grass weeds. Bent grass, Bermuda grass, orchard grass, and quack grass. They do not have any sort of herbicide that you can use to control them.
So what would you use in controlling that?
Well, it says no selective herbicide available, spot treatments, or total lawn renovation with glyphosate. So that you're talking about spraying the entire lawn and killing everything may be required for control. Application of these products kills all desirable grasses contacted.
Whatever that chemical touches is going to wipe it out.
And see, this is what I have in my garden bed right now. It is I've been checking it out. We have grass popping up in the sections I didn't remove. They are all quackgrass.
Oh man,
they are not the bluegrass. The bluegrass has stayed under my mulch and didn't come up, but it's the quackgrass. And since I do have other plants in there, I don't want to use Roundup. So I'm going to find a grass killer. I think it would work, but it says there's no selective herbicide for it.
Good luck, buddy.
But there's a grass. Shouldn't grass killer kill it?
Not necessarily, no.
Because it focuses on the monocots instead of the dicots?
Yeah, but you'd have to look at the label. Okay. Every label.
Because it'll say what it'll affect. Because it would have it on here, I would think.
Well, you'd hope that it has quackgrass in there, but it may not.
I don't know what the active ingredient in just grass killer is.
Yeah.
But I mean, Roundup is cheap too, so I got no problem spraying Roundup or glyphosate on it. Interesting.
Yeah, excellent control there. Good, fair. Okay.
So let's see what those are. Because if you look on this graph, it shows that these are affected. This is basically the broadleaf sprays here, because these are all broadleaf, because this section. So 1 through 5 on this graph is more associated with
monocots.
The monocots, the grasses.
Yeah.
But look, then you got those F ones right there. Let's see what's on the top ones. Those are the ones I'm not super familiar with. 1 through 5.
Yeah. Goosegrass and crabgrass control.
Yeah, right there. Boom, boom, boom.
Bensulide and oxidation.
Anyway, so there's some stuff out there. There's some excellent resources. If you're in Utah, check out the USU extension stuff, because it's pretty good. And they know what they're talking about.
Great list. Yeah, thank you, Blaine.
Thank you.
Rock on, Babylon.
All right, well, there you go. That was episode number 92, Yard and Guarded Weed Control. Thank you, Brad, for coming and doing this podcast with me. Thank you, Podlings, for listening. We really appreciate it. You could find all of our episodes and pictures of us and bios and stuff at thehorticult.com. You could also find these videos of the podcast, live videos of the podcast, and edited videos of the podcast, YouTube channel, The Horticult. We have plant spotlights on there, and then we also have garden vlogs. I have a garden, obviously, and I go through it and talk about the stuff I'm doing, and we're going to start doing more with the YouTube, so if you want to see us on there, go check us out. Me and Brad talking it up. Thank you guys so much. And remember to plant on, Babylon.